Right, let's get going.
Yeah, let's
This
do
is
it.
my friend Troy Assoignon. Is that the right way to pronounce
You
this?
nailed it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And from Canada. And today we are
Canada, based out of Mexico. Yeah.
based out of Mexico. Sorry. Yes. The from Canada is less important than where you are right now, right?
Yeah.
And Troy and I had known each other a couple of years. Usual thing, just from Mark Zuckerberg brought us together.
That's absolutely true. He did. That's funny.
um, and Troy is a marketer, works on a whole bunch of different stuff and B2B, some B2C as well, or not so much these days.
B2C, some B2B. Yeah. In a mix
And
across
is a
the board.
guy who is an interesting fella because he doesn't go out there and self promote a lot on social media, but he's always got some
Yeah.
good business going on.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
that's always a sign of the people who are killers. It's like they don't need to be known
Hmm.
to actually get paid.
Hmm. Appreciate that. Thank you, man.
So, Troy, the first thing I want to ask you is when was the first time you typed how to make money online to Google?
Oh gosh. This would probably be 2012,
Mm-hmm.
2013. Um, yeah, I want to get out of construction. And I actually discovered recently, I didn't know you had such a construction background yourself. I've been reading some of your replies and different things, and I was like, oh, I didn't know John was so versed in that space. But yeah, sorry. 2012, I think I searched how do I earn money on the internet? How do I get out of construction? How do I start? And I found I believe I found a mentor at the time's blog, and I just started reading his content, and turned out he was in Winnipeg, and we ended up meeting up for coffee, and he introduced me to like the 4 hour work week and all that, and yeah, that was the first time.
Awesome. And what was the first thing you did to actually make money online? Where did the first dollar come
What was the
from?
first thing I did? Actually, I was doing a lot of graphic design, so I had a background in design.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up my only avenue that I was like I can actually take my design skills and start serving people online. So yeah, I'd just pick up logo gigs, logo packages. Funny enough, I would hire 4 or 5 different Fiverr people, and I would get the best logo delivered to me because I knew that would 2 or 3 would be kind of not the best. I would handle the finishing touches myself and make sure that everything was nice, packaged properly, presented to the client. Then I'd mock it up nice and deliver the package. But yeah, it was through I guess logo arbitrage, and then that kind of went to websites. So yeah.
Kind of, that's interesting that rather than just get one person, you went and did five. It kind of says a lot about the
Yeah,
power of positioning and also having the right relationships, doesn't it?
yeah, I think so. There's been many times on that journey that I'd be let down by contractors. So I'd know that if I'd at least go to multiple, then I'd get something good back. At least from one, there'd be one killer piece that'd be like, hey, like that nails it. So yeah,
Mm-hmm. But also the fact that you were able to charge enough money to pay five other people to
yeah,
do the same job and still be profitable.
yeah.
Because what was the difference? What made the difference between you and them? Why couldn't they get those gigs, get paid that kind of money?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely always higher priced. I do remember one time a friend introduced me to a tech company that did a lot of sports leagues tech,
Mm-hmm.
and he taught me that I could bid on their logo design at about 10 grand. And I was like, what? Like, that's insane. I think I was charging like 500 to 750 for a logo. And that kind of cracked open my mind that there is some companies that will pay that. It's hard to get those gigs. Like, it definitely takes a lot of relationships, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that shifted a lot of my perspective to pricing. It's like, huh, this is possible. Like, I can actually bid on a design and get paid quite a bit. But yeah,
Not only will pay it, but in a certain sense, must pay it
yeah,
because
yeah.
of corporate culture. You know, they used to say like nobody ever got
Mm,
fired for buying an IBM computer. Like, but they were the premium product in the market at the time, and like people they paid more, but people could say, "Hey, I bought the best stuff." If they had to be accountable to a corporate board or something like that, well, we bought the best, and it didn't
yeah, yeah.
work. but it's not my fault.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was interesting too, now that I reflect on it, the amount of research that they wouldn't, I wouldn't say they would require, but that would be a good chunk of the billables, like getting to know the company, getting to know the depth, getting to know the detail. And I think that's fascinating because even in the marketing space, like when you do proper research, the marketing writes itself
Hmm.
versus just trying to depend on your talent and skills. So I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, look, that can go both ways. So I can
Yep.
give two good examples from this week. One,
Yep.
I've been writing some video scripts for a client of mine, and he sells a SaaS product.
Mm.
And I was like sitting down, trying to get all the different proof points, all the different things the product does, trying to cram it all in. And I,
Mm.
wrote it, rewrote it. Shit, a friend of mine, he's just like, dude, this is all over the place. You're like trying to put too much shit into 2 minutes.
Mm. Yep.
And then I was like, okay, so how do I pick one thing? And he's like, just go and find something adjacent in the market and see what
Mm.
works. I was like, oh yeah, okay. So I go to
Ah,
something adjacent in
smart.
the market, find it like a 90-second spot. And sure enough, that 90-second spot, like they basically just one benefit the whole way through. It was like,
Mm.
okay, this is the
Love
benefit the
that.
market wants. That's what
Love
I'm
that.
going with. Forget all the features. You can talk about all that on the
Yeah.
onboarding call.
Yeah.
Watching right now. Oh, and the other thing was like the opposite end of that though. It's like I was on a call last couple of days with a dude about a B2B product that's a combination of software and service. And man, we were talking for 30 minutes. And I just said to
Mm.
him, bro, I appreciate that you're trying to share, what your product is to me. I am no wiser now than I was 30 minutes ago what your product is and does. In fact, I'm more confused. And he's like, well, how do we find it out? I was like, well, like, you know, do we have recordings of your sales calls? Like, at what moment did they say yes? What did you say in the 30 seconds before they said yes? That's
Yeah.
probably, what's the
Yeah.
core of
Yeah.
your offer.
Yeah. Ah, that's cool.
But yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
So you get through, you're doing these, and this thing with hustles as well. Like you talk about, you're doing graphic design, you're doing the logos, making good money,
Yep.
but it's like there comes a point with every hustle where it's
Yep.
like, okay, it's time for something new. It gets old, right?
Yep.
So what you do next?
Oh gosh. So I started getting into a bit of web development from there because I felt I could justify more of a higher ticket and more consistently across the board, just
Mm-hmm.
instead of being the logo guy. Because then that time too, like, how do I say this? Even though Fiverr was also my asset, it was also gobbling up a good chunk of market share where people were just going to Fiverr anyways themselves if they were savvy, they could get it
Yes.
done. So that, like, I'm kind of glad I transitioned out of the design space because like now
Wayside.
it'd be a real yeah, it'd be a real hard be a real hard time to make a career there. So I got into a lot of web development. I would help just kind of position people on like build them a pretty fancy website that displayed that they were the expert authority and whatnot. That worked for a little while. From that though, I would build like I'd charge someone 10 grand for a website and they'd be like, cool, where are my customers? And like I literally had someone sell a couch to pay for my web design services. Like they got rid of their big fancy beautiful couch to pay for a website. And I was like, oh man, like, okay, we got a pretty website, but now I got to start teaching you the sales process. Now I got to start teaching you actually how to acquire customers because like it kind of, how do I say, I would say they were in a spot where their website served them. Like if they were to present it to the right people in their sales process, it would benefit them to closing the sale because they'd be positioned, displayed well, but they really didn't have traffic and they really didn't have any new leads coming in. So it's like, wait, I got to actually teach you a little bit of prospecting, a little bit of sales process, a little bit of content, and to get your machine moving. So from there, I transitioned into a lot of coaching and consulting because I found it was more reliable to just, one-off web development services. Like clients would stick around, they'd be there, and I'd consistently be able to support them. So
So this is an interesting thing, and it's like it's a really hard lesson to learn.
Hmm.
Is that it's no good for someone to do business with you once.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter what the price point is, a 5K, a 10K sale, 20K sale, doesn't matter. Like the higher the price point, okay, the more you can actually say, okay, I can just get more. But really, like there's a lot of work goes into winning a sale. And if people are only going to spend with you one time and you're back at square one, you're just creating it's the myth of Sisyphus, isn't it? You're rolling the stone up the hill only to roll it up the hill again the next day.
Yep. 100%. Now, now that I reflect on it, even you saying that, like, to make that business extraordinarily profitable, I'd have to sell thousands of websites, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of websites. And like, that's sure some crack the code on that and they get enough lead flow to do it. But if I were to have to sell 1,000 websites, I'd probably have to talk to 10,000 plus people.
Yeah.
So and then like really like that's and for a single person hustle that wasn't viable.
By the time this client says to you, hey, where are all where's the traffic? Where's my
Yeah.
leads?
Yeah.
Like, have you, at the time they ask you that question, had you already figured out that problem? Or did you have to go and scramble and say, shit, where is the traffic at that point?
I figure out that problem. Not entirely. How do I say this? I been working on it for myself by posting content. I'd already been kind of like creating a bit of my own traffic. No, I do remember vividly when I first signed up my first client. I was pouring through a bunch of Jay Abraham's content and trainings, and I was like, man, like I really gotta perform on this. I really gotta make this work and like actually gotta deliver something to this client. So kinda like I would say I kinda had an understanding, but also I wouldn't say fully winging it. I was definitely studying and getting to know the client's market and figuring out unique strategies before every call. So yeah, I didn't have it whipped, but I had a brief understanding. We'd been running that Young Entrepreneur Society at the time, and like I knew how to create traffic, bring people together, and like make sales for myself, make social content. But like I didn't have a laid out process of like this is exactly how you get your next lead sale conversion. So yeah.
So you at the Young Entrepreneur side, this is like an online to offline community. Like you promoted it online, but you actually did the events offline. Is that right?
Yeah, it was honestly, now that I didn't reflect at the time how big of an impact this actually I think had on my career. We were an offline community that brought entrepreneurs together, and then it started bleeding into an online community. So we would throw big events downtown. It would have like 150 200 people. We'd have Audi, Mercedes, Bacardi sponsoring. It was impressive. Like we'd do dress to impress, and like they'd park cars out front, and it would look like we'd hire photographers and models, and like it was cool, man. Like it was honestly like now that I talk about it, it's like it was a place to be in Winnipeg. Like people are like, this is like there wasn't. And now that I do go back to cities, even spending time in Winnipeg, I was like, man, there's not many entrepreneurial spaces. I did find one like Tech Thursday, which was really cool. But yeah, there wasn't really any of this going on. So we did that for a while. And how do I say this? Where do I even go from here with that? Yeah, just it was an offline community that bled into online. So it definitely we created a space where entrepreneurs could go and hang out with other entrepreneurs and actually feel moderately understood. Because a lot of them were like I mean, every entrepreneur I think has a level of loneliness inside them. Like not many people around you really understand you. A lot of the other people work 9 to 5s, and it's like you work all day every day and don't stop thinking about your clients, your projects. And this was a place where people could finally go to feel accepted and like feel like that, like, wow, I'm not crazy. There's other people just like
I'm
me,
a
like,
weirdo, but there's other weirdos out there.
yeah, there's other weirdos and we can all hang out and like, we can all have scotch and cigars together and dress fancy and like, yeah, it was cool. And really, I believe that event won like an award from the city for like just the top marketing event, but like it people would come from all around. Like we had people coming from America, like we flew a group in. We had people coming from all sorts of corners of Canada as well. Just it was a fun event. But yeah, now that I didn't, for some people when I would work with them, I'd be like, man, like how do you have such a hard time like getting things going? But I didn't realize that we also had a big network effect kind of lagging and like pushing us from behind, if that makes sense. Like all the connections that I built throughout that time were continuously like not putting the pressure on, but like just giving us that little edge that I didn't really realize I had until now later on. Like I haven't ran that community in a long time. I still have some of the connections, but also I also vie for something like that again. It's like it was a really impactful community, and I feel I definitely, yeah, I took for granted a lot of it too. I was just like, yeah, whatever, we're just doing cool things. It's fun, haha. But it was, I definitely think it helped position me in a right way to put me on the map. So you're leading a group of people, you're
Yeah,
leading a bunch of people, and people look up to you. So like, this is the guy that can connect you to the people. Like, so yeah, that was definitely something that I really enjoyed.
and a lot of people get stuck in this idea when they start to do something for themselves that they have to do it all alone or all by
Mm,
themselves, and that
yep,
they can't show any weakness and blah blah blah. But
yep,
like people who actually seem to get ahead a bit quicker say,
mm,
hey, who do I know who can help me with this stuff? And then
mm,
just go and relentlessly ask questions. Like I got
yep,
one friend like that. I was in a paid thing with him last year, and he's just like, I'm getting value for money out of this investment. I'm going to ask 100
yep,
questions every day.
yep,
I paid 5 figures for this shit, so I need to squeeze the juice. It's like, okay,
yeah,
well.
yeah,
And he did superbly well out of it. Like he went and asked every
yep.
single question, but he went and actually did something with the information he got to.
Man, we had a foreign guy that was just coming to Winnipeg that did events in Madrid, and man, he helped push us up. Like I think we were kind of hitting a stale point in like where we were like we were meeting at some cafes. We had still done quite a few events, but we needed the next level of this thing. And he actually found our group online, and man, he pushed hard to make this event into something else. Like we went to the point where we started doing fashion shows and like featuring artists and like having art shows, exhibits, and like it was, yeah, it was really interesting. But like to what you said, like yeah, there's no way I could have did this alone. Like so many people helped us, so many people wanted to be a part of it. Um, and I tried to get a couple other clients in the past to start something like that themselves, and they're like, I did the first one and 10 people came. It's like that's great. Like that's a good
Yeah.
that's a good
You mean
start.
people showed
Like,
up offline? Like people left their houses for you?
yeah,
That's a big deal.
yeah, it's like that's huge. It's like, and I understand that they were anticipating more and they wanted like 20 or 30 people there. And it's like, if you keep going, like, I think our first one was like, I mean, we hired models on the first one. So it made it look like it was popular. Like we
Mhm.
brought people to make sure it looked cool. But the first couple like sucked. And then after that, like 2, 3 years later, it was a hit. So yeah.
Awesome.
uh,
When did you decide to leave Canada?
Oh gosh, 2015 initially. So we 2015, 2016. I actually met Alicia, my girlfriend from the Young Entrepreneur Society, and we went to Miami and we met and drove through the Florida Keys and did a big old camping trip. Kind of fell in love there, and then decided that I'd go back to Winnipeg, she'd go back to Vancouver. And then 6 months later, I moved to Vancouver. And then another 6 months after that, we went to Indonesia, and we packed up our house. Not good enough, actually. We have a whole story on our house getting trashed while we were gone. But we went to Indonesia. We started the adventure there. we did end up coming back to Canada because we had like subleased our house to someone, and they basically sold all of our stuff. And yeah, dude, it was a
To
really
be
messed up
expected.
experience. Yeah, we packed like I had anticipated only going to Indonesia for like maybe 2 or 3 months. And I was like, I'm
Hmm.
just gonna stuff all of our closets with things, and like if we do need to Airbnb it out or whatever, rent it out, we'll just like make the house presentable, but like, someone's not gonna go through all of our stuff and just like take it out. So anyways, we ended up staying longer and subleased our house, and the guy ended up being a total crackhead and like sold everything that we had inside the house. And like we came back to like plates of like Coke all over the apartment, and like trash holes in the walls, like boogers in the sinks, and like it was disgusting. It was so messed up, man. The dude was like renting the place out multiple people on various different websites and collecting the money and then not letting them in.
Oh
And like
God, it sounds so grim.
there would be people that were flying from like across the country, and they're like, hey, I'm like scheduled to stay in this apartment, and I'm like, yeah, he doesn't live here anymore. And it's like that guy rented that out to you, and like we just got home last week, and like the whole family, man, it was awful, to be honest. It was brutal. It was like, here's a Wi-Fi connection, like if you need to make reservations somewhere else, you're gonna have to, but like even if you were to come upstairs, there wouldn't be anywhere for you to stay. Like it's just like it's a disaster. And we ended up hiring a Jehovah's Witness on Canada Day to come clean our house out when we came back. Oh man.
Well, you came back and you left again pretty quick, right? You decided, no, I'm not doing
Yeah,
this.
well we came back, our house is trashed, and we were like, huh, really like have anything here. Like we don't really have any connections here. We don't I mean, in Vancouver, love Vancouver. Very transient community. Like everyone's, I don't know. I don't want to judge Vancouver too harshly, but it was a harder city to make meaningful connections in than in Winnipeg, which I anticipated Vancouver would be actually a lot more connected and a lot more like going for it. But anyways, yeah, we came back. Uh, Basically packed up our apartment, got rid of it, and we set our sights on Thailand. And we decided, you know what, let's we tried Indonesia. We were almost there for like 8 months. And then we decided, let's head to Thailand and try out Thailand. We did. And we just packed everything up and pieced out. Basically, since Thailand, we hadn't really been back to Canada for almost 4 or 5 years after Thailand. So we came back last summer for the first time in like 4 years. So it was, yeah.
And are you like all the way along? Are you doing the kind of Tim Ferriss for a work week digital nomad thing, or did you actually have a business going?
Yeah, well, good question. So I just continued, honestly, a lot of my coaching consulting work. So I'd say the 4 hour work week to me is not a bit of a myth, but like I'd work
It's not a
eight
bit
to
of a myth.
12
It's a
hour.
total. It's a total
It's a
myth.
total myth. Yeah, yeah, 100% myth. Like I
It's
basically
BizUp.
built up.
It's the legitimate face of BizUp, the respectable face of BizUp.
And like there was some days where we could, work 2 to 3 hours and then go on an adventure and like whatnot. But like what I realized throughout that journey is if you don't put in the work and you don't have anything up and running for you, any systems or any ads or anything, no one else is working. If there's no one else working, you're not generating new business. So oh man, I think the challenging thing that a lot of people don't realize about like Thailand and whatnot, and I mean, you're in Europe, so you'll work with American clients. Time zones are hard.
Huge, huge
They're
matters a
very
lot.
challenging to work with. Like to be up at, I'd have to work it out to be where my clients, we would do calls their early evening, my morning. So
Hmm.
my 7 a.m. would be their 7 p.m. My 8 a.m. would be their 8 p.m. So we try and always work that out. Um, but yeah, it was just me. Uh, I would hire some people for design if I'd pick up any extra design work, but it was mostly just me, just coaching, consulting.
Yeah, look, working different time zones. I mean,
Yeah.
it just doesn't work energetically. Talking to somebody
Yeah.
who's starting their day when you are ending your day, or vice
Yeah.
versa, you
Yeah.
know, you're just like, hey, if you're okay, it's 10 p.m. You're talking with someone, it's like 10 a.m. where they are. It's like,
Yeah.
man, I just want to go to bed now. And they're
Yeah.
like, let's fucking go, go,
Yeah.
go,
Let's
go,
go.
go. They've just had their
I,
first cup of coffee. They're feeling great.
yeah.
And then
Well,
the
and
other way
that's
around.
from a consulting standpoint, worked well for me because I was high energy and they were like receptive to like, they were just ending their day, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I found that they were very receptive, but when I'd be on the flip side and it would be their morning and my evening, I'd be like, oh God, like this is hard to match energy. So you're 100% right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm working with one client in Australia at the moment, really nice people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cool. It's good. We try and do a time where it's like their afternoon and my early morning, so
Yep.
it doesn't feel too far apart. But even though it's feel, and I used to find that I lived in Fiji for years, where it was 12 hours
Yep.
to the dot from Ireland, and like I
Yep.
just dreaded calling home because it was like
Yep.
exactly the same feeling, just mismatch of energy. You don't want to talk to somebody who's in the other side of the day. It's just a weird thing.
Yep. Yep. 100%.
But you actually made it to Mexico, and when did you actually get down there, and why did you go there? Because a lot
Yeah.
of people seem to have moved there, entrepreneurial people, in the last couple of years.
Yeah. Why did we move there? So I guess after Thailand, we went to Malaysia. We stayed in Malaysia for probably another 8 months. So we did Indonesia 8 months, Thailand 8 months, Malaysia 8 months, and then between Thailand and Malaysia, we did Europe for another 3 months. So why Mexico and why'd we end up there? We had wanted to start Western time zone. We wanted to be kind of closer to family, but still in the tropics. We had heard a lot of good things about Mexico a year prior, and we actually, when we were in Europe, we were contemplating going to Mexico, and then we're like, well, maybe let's check out Malaysia, and maybe let's stay around this way for a little bit longer. And then we went to Mexico, frick, and then 8 or 9 months later, the pandemic hit,
Yeah,
and we
I
had to
forget
make a
about that.
choice. Yeah, we had to make a choice. It's like either go back to Canada, and then we were also too like we hadn't been back in Canada for almost 4 or 5 years at this point, and it's like, should we chance going back to Canada and getting stuck there? Because also don't know. No one knew what was going to go on. No one knew like if all the borders were going to lock down indefinitely or what was going to happen.
Mhm.
So we decided, let's stay in Mexico. Let's set up a life here. Let's get all of our papers sorted, everything sorted out, and set up life and just be here. I think it was the best. To be honest, I think it was the best place to be in lockdowns. Like they definitely still locked down, but things were definitely a little lighter. They had 2 months of like total shutdowns. It was really fascinating through the streets of like a total tourist town that's like always alive and bumping, and everything was shuttered. And it's just like, whoa, like it felt like wild, wild west because a good chunk of people left, like a good chunk of workers, like they bring workers from all parts of Mexico. They shipped them out, sent them back to where they came from. And just like a lot of people left and it was quiet. It was a quiet place for a bit. But yeah, that's honestly, that was the biggest reason why Mexico. Like it was kind of just a piece of our plan. When we first landed in Mexico, we actually had tickets booked. Sorry, we first landed in America. We had tickets booked to go to Colombia, and there's a coup happening in Colombia, and we're like, I don't know if we want to like fly into this right now. Let's just kind of like sideline to Mexico, and then if things calm down over there, let's go over to Colombia. And honestly, we never made it to Colombia. We set roots up there.
You live in one of the places where there is a big entrepreneurial community around you.
Yeah, yeah. Playa del Carmen. Yeah, I would say percent of the foreigners doing some sort of entrepreneurial something. If not running their own business, they're in a sales position or remote sales or local sales. So
And like nowadays, what do you do? Are you consulting? Are you
yeah.
building a company? You run an agency? How do you
Yes,
describe
yeah. So
yourself?
I still do a bit of consulting, and it's actually, you made a post the other day. I'd love to chat with you about after. But I do a lot of consulting, coaching. The main thing that takes up a good chunk of my time though now is an agency. So we run various things. So we run YouTube ads, we run Google ads. From our YouTube and Google data, we create organic content. So we will then find the converting keywords inside a campaign to create organic content to drive organic conversions. So in a lot of our experience with SEO, like you can still create SEO traffic, but just search traffic that's not really interested in purchasing. Through working on a campaign for 4 years, we realized that like, wow, we're sitting on a data gold mine. So we then could read the Google keywords and create content around those keywords that were driving us to conversions. So we kind of, yeah.
Let's dumb this down a little bit. Let's dumb this down so I can understand it. And I'm gonna shoot you back what I heard in that sentence, and you tell me if I'm on the right track. What you're saying is that when people search on Google, they're in an information gathering stage of the buyer journey. So you don't know that the keywords that come back from SEO are actually good high intent keywords, right? Some of them will be, but a lot of them won't be. On the other hand, if you've got keywords attached to an advertising campaign and you know that campaign was a really hot campaign that sold a lot of stuff, you can say, okay, these are high intent keywords. These are the keywords that matter when somebody's ready to actually take their credit card out and spend. And then we can take those keywords back to the organic side and create some organic content that hits those same people who are maybe not clicking on ads, but are searching for stuff at that point in the buying journey.
We'd always get in crap from sales teams like, we want credit card on the counter, we want these leads hot and ready, we don't want to educate them on why we're the best. So we were always getting grilled for that. And after we spent about 1.5 million on this campaign, we were like, hey, we gotta start diversifying here. Like basically every week we're in conversations with the sales manager, like our CPA is too high, or we don't have enough leads, or blah 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 blah. Like that's part of the advertising journey. It's either too many leads, not enough leads, lead quality low. Yeah, it's like no matter what you do, you're always going to be in like these push and pull conversations. Either you did too good, your ads aren't converting it good enough, your numbers are too high. But then we decided, let's introduce, if we're spending this much on Google ads, let's introduce some organic content. And then if those organic leads start converting, they're leads that you have content, that content's there. It's not like pumping money into the ad machine. You're just putting some of the money into content development. So yeah, that takes up a good chunk of my time now. Definitely, how do I say this? I like the agency side. We did all sorts of fundraising and different things, but I really like the coaching consulting side a lot. Like now that I reflect back and I've had time in the agency and I've had time doing coaching, consulting, design, I really like transformation that you can, like just taking someone from something to nothing and just actually giving them insight on a big challenge and problem that they're having. And then they actually overcome that and you get to experience them overcoming this whole challenge and like everything that they're going through. That's really satisfying work. So I would say I'm at the point in the agency world where we're still growing it. I'm still spending quite a bit of time on it. But I'm also, how do I say this? Finding a place where, trying to find the intersection where I actually really enjoy the work, and I don't know how to even say that out loud. Yeah, where I really enjoy the work. Agency work's fun, but it's also spend more, spend less, better results, better leads now, faster. It's more of a, I'm just deploying people's capital, and it's like, it's cool, it's fun, and it is sometimes challenging, but it's not as satisfying as the coaching consulting side there.
Well, a lot of the agency work is like, it's client relationship management, isn't it?
Yeah. And a big part of my life is basically making sure that our advertiser and the agency people are communicating in a clear and effective way so that the person that hired us can actually understand them, because often agency people speak in two different
Acronyms.
languages. And then the client's like, I don't know what that means, or like, I'm frustrated because of this, and then the agency person just gives them more data, and it's like, no, like they don't want more data, they want to actually understand what's going on so they can make informed decisions in their company. So yeah, a lot of my coaching consulting side, I think, helped me in the agency, because now I actually just consult the client on challenging problems, and tell them things that, like, I think most other people in their company are willing to tell them. The companies get full of lots of it's so fascinating, man. Companies get so full of like yes men and yes women, and there's
Yeah,
nothing wrong with it. But
just is what it
first
is.
time, yeah, you have to deliver like hard truths. Like, it's like, hey, like, what if your position's totally wrong? Like, what if everything you've been building over the last like 4 or 5 years, it's like it's off the mark? Like, politically, you're attracting far left people, but in your content, you're producing far right content. And it's like that doesn't make sense. Like, those things don't connect. Like, if the far left person comes across your far right content, they're totally polarized. And by that time, we've lost them, and we've spent quite a bit of cash to acquire them. So we got to actually like work on finding a middle ground, or making these brands totally separate. And yeah, dude, it's like, wow, no one's ever said those things to me before. It's like, yeah, because it sucks. Like, it's not fun. It's not enjoyable to talk to you about why this campaign could be drastically lighting on fire, and no one's really taken the chance to look at it in detail. So yeah.
The interesting part with consulting is that a lot of the time you're saying really basic, obvious shit to people,
Mm.
and they're happy that you said it.
Yeah.
They're not like, because sometimes I'll be talking to somebody, I'm like, I've just got something to say, and it's so stupid that
Mm.
I'll often preface it like, this is going to sound really stupid, but I'm still going to say it, because like,
Yeah.
you don't want them. They've usually spent a substantial amount of money for your time. It's like
Yeah.
you don't want them to feel like they've wasted their money on talking to an idiot. But at the
Yeah.
same time, the thing they need to hear is often really, really basic. Hey, do
Yeah.
less of this, do more of this.
Yeah. Well, and what's stupid to you is also potentially revelation to them. Like, I think that's, yeah.
True. But the
Yeah.
the feedback I usually get is what you said was so obvious after you said it. It's like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So like I didn't tell them anything they didn't already know. I just pointed out something that they didn't want, they for whatever reason weren't looking at or didn't want to see.
Yeah. Chose to ignore. I mean,
Chose to
technically.
ignore. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's weird
Fascinating.
stuff. And I mean, I don't have much of an education in psychology, but it's kind of
Yeah.
practical psychology.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the interesting thing about coaching consulting, is you have to pick up basic psychology along the way. If you don't, like, you'll struggle and wonder why people do certain things.
What are your like core skill sets, the things that actually help you be a needle mover for the people you work with?
Core skill sets. Hmm. Do quite a bit of writing. So I did sharpen my copy chops for like, I would say 2 to 3 years. I worked with
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy quite a bit.
Jimmy
And
Parent,
yeah, Jimmy
great
Parent.
guy. I
Yeah.
need to
And
get him on.
yeah, he's a good dude. Oh yeah, no, he's awesome. Jimmy helped me with a lot. So I think, and I don't write day to day for clients, but I do a lot of CRO. I do a lot of leadership. I do a lot of communication. I handle a lot of pricing, actually. I think that's one skill I've carried across from my construction career. I just price, like, I just understand how to price projects and make sure we're not totally screwed. Um, hmm, what skills have I carried across? I think a lot of my design skills have helped me do a lot of CRO stuff. So it's like, it sounds funny, but like formatting and fonts and proper bolding and proper headings and proper, like, just making something look prettier. Like, I don't know if that
It's
makes
huge.
sense, but
It's
yeah, it's just
huge.
like this thing looks like trash. Like, you load it on mobile and it's like you're like, yeah, we got to actually make things look stacked so they look appealing to the eyes. When they look appealing to the eyes, there's instant trust built. So I think, yeah, a lot of those skills have carried over. A lot of leadership, like, uh, advertisers won't feel comfortable and confident in their work being good, or sales managers like will yell at us after we've spent months of like asking how lead quality is, and then they come back saying everything's screwed, and it's like, wait a minute, like we have all these documented conversations of you saying everything's fantastic, so like what's changed, like what's different here? I've had to have some really conversations with sales managers that chose to be, I don't want to say misinformed, but like they pulled themselves out of the equation whenever we would have conversations like, yep, things are good, things are good, and then they'd only come around when things were like in their tense. And it's like, hey dude, like we've been here for like 9, 10 months, and it's like, where have you been? Like we have conversations with all your salespeople, we have constant feedback, and it's like, and being able to hold in conversation while not like, I don't want to say not being like righteous, but like still putting yourself solid in the ground, still educating and disagreeing, making sure that we can come to some sort of solution instead of like, you're wrong, like you suck. It's like you have to be a strong pillar. Whereas like a lot of advertisers would just say like, get bent.
Yeah.
Say like, screw off, get out of here, I'm done with you. So I think, yeah, and then a lot of my role, I have to like be I don't want to say a mediator, but definitely making sure everyone else understands each other and that we can come to a solution whether we disagree or agree. So
It's a fine line to walk, because hey, you want to tell people the truth because that's what they pay you for. But on
yeah,
the other part of it is like there's versions of the truth. And do you really want
yeah,
to tell the version that creates an adversarial situation where suddenly nobody wants to work together, or
yeah,
or people start to retreat into their little silos and say, hey, this is,
yeah,
not invented here phenomena starts
yeah.
to happen.
Dude, it's so phenomenal in the marketing space how often people are siloed, and that marketing doesn't communicate with sales and sales doesn't communicate with marketing. And it's like two totally different departments ran by two totally different people, and none of them want to get along. And it's like, it's just blows my freaking mind. But that's siloed departments create bad campaigns.
I just want to jump back to something you said about formatting, and
Yeah,
like just to
yeah,
reiterate that, like how huge that is. A lot of people um don't realize, and like, I've gotten documents from people like that you spent money for stuff,
mm,
and they're just like laughably bad.
mm,
And it's like the content could be fantastic, but if it's not simple to read and pull out the information that's
yeah,
relevant to you from it, then it sucks. Even if it's the best
yeah.
information in the world, if it's not readable. And it's just so crazy
Not
how often that's
digestible. Like,
overlooked. Yeah.
yeah,
Like pale gray text on a black background. Come
yeah,
on.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I've seen actually a couple of your documents that I think someone had a testimonial for you on something, and they walked through one of your documents and how clean it was laid out. Like that was
It's
that was
important
fantastic. Yep.
because it's like it creates it's setting up a situation where it's easier for you to win. It creates a good impression from the get-go.
Yep.
Hey, this is so neat, tidy, and organized. It's easy to find what I need in here.
Yep.
And like I think that client, what he said was, this is going to make it so much faster for the design team to actually understand what they need to
Mm,
do.
yep.
And it's like then later on, that's great, because if it's not that way, then you give them a chance to grumble about you. They will find
Yep.
things they'll find fault. So it's like
Yep.
set yourself up for make it easy for other people, and then
Yep.
they're more inclined to feel good towards you and to give you the benefit of the doubt if there's ever a
100%.
problem.
100%. Even in like proposals and like displaying important information, like having a run-on sentence of like, how do I say this? You have a big chunky paragraph and it's like, hey, like those are two different topics. Like those topics don't deserve to be chunked together. And it's like those bullet points need actual clear space to breathe so you can actually digest the bullet point instead of just looking at it like, oh, this document's so hard to read. Like, feeling that when I look at it, the client going through it, reading it, it's like, oh, okay, let me like sit down and actually like I gotta really focus on what's coming out here. If you can just make it a little bit easier, everyone's consuming so much information on a daily basis. It's like a little bit more consumable information, I think, goes a long way. So
Yeah, it's like the same thing happens with doing web pages and funnels and stuff. Everyone
yeah,
wants to look at the desktop design
yeah,
for stuff, where
yeah,
there's like magazine or newspaper style 2 column and 3 column layouts.
yeah,
And then but then the reality is just like, almost everything now gets seen on a mobile phone first.
hundred
So if it
percent,
doesn't work in a single column layout, it's dead anyway.
100%.
And even I'm even now thinking, like, at this point, like, what's the use of doing 2 column layouts on desktop? Just make it a
Mm,
narrow single column layout so it feels the same on either
yeah,
formats.
yeah. So it feels the same. Yeah, amen. I still struggle, like even as a designer, a lot of my design life started in desktop,
Yeah.
and it's like make a big pretty desktop, and from there I squish it down to mobile. So I still struggle a lot to design mobile first. I often reverse and adapt my mobile to my desktop because I have bad habits that started when I was younger because nothing was mobile. But no, you're 100% right. Like design for mobile first, and then everything's just easier. Yeah, no, it's huge.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the other thing I wanted to talk about is just like the consulting side of stuff, because I've done quite
Yep,
a lot of consulting the last couple of years,
yep,
but I've kind of come to a point where I'm just like, okay, it's really good. It's good. And it's good. It could be good cash flow gigs, and it's like adds
yep,
supplements extra cash into your income.
yep,
And there are certainly like ongoing, like I was talking with somebody today who wants a
yep.
consulting gig where we spend a couple of hours a month together. But I think that the downside of consulting is like it's kind of self-contained. And then it people are always looking for something new. That's just human nature. So like
Yep.
there'll come a point inevitably, and that could be weeks, it could be months, but the point is coming where they feel like they need to hear a different voice.
Yep. Yeah. 100%.
And it's like it's good, but there's not it's not all that defensible as a
Hmm. Good
like people
point.
can easily say, you know what, I don't need to spend that money on consulting anymore.
Yep.
Whereas if you're delivering, you're actually executing on something. If it's a done for you service where they need it to operate their business, much more
Yep.
defensible. Where there could be a
Hmm.
consulting element to it too, but there's actually a deliverable every month where they
Yep.
they actually use that as a sales asset or a marketing asset. It's yeah,
Hmm.
they definitely need to think twice before they cut that one
Yeah.
loose.
Yeah. And as you mentioned that, I think that is a big reason I always move towards advertising. Once we land an account and they're spending 70 to 100 grand a month with us, they're generally not going anywhere. They're not going to look for the new next shiny thing. If the marketing's working, they stick around. So yeah, that's it's really interesting that you mentioned that actually, and I hadn't really reflected on that point. Um, there's so many times too where I always had to like, be okay with someone leaving, and it sucked. And it's like I just helped you build a 6-figure plus agency, and now I see them working with someone else, and I'm like, like inside I'd get a little bit bitter, but like, hmm, that's really interesting. I appreciate you saying that. Hmm. So this is an interesting conversation. I've never really like a lot of people you'll see in the coaching consulting space talk about like community and build a community and like have a Slack channel or school or like, a Facebook group with all your people in it so they can all collaborate. I've never really went down that route too much, but as you mention it, that's kind of where the value is they stay for the community. They don't really stay they don't really stay for the main teacher necessarily. They do. They're loyal for that reason. That's really interesting. That's
They do
fascinating. I
stay
never
for the
really
community. They stay longer than they would have otherwise, for sure.
yeah, I've never really thought about that in detail. Like I've ran a couple group things here and there and like it's been good and it's been fun, but I've never really developed long-term deep. I mean, obviously we had that Young Entrepreneur Society, but that wasn't really a paid community. It was just like a freebie group. It's interesting. So I do see a lot of people scaling up coaching consulting, but they have a big community back end. So yeah, if you're not filling up, I think that's the challenge with coaching consulting. If you get into a hairy gig, you're putting all of your life force into delivering that project. And if you're not putting a good chunk of your life force into your marketing, like your developing of new clients, you wake up in 6 months and you got no pipeline. And it's like, oh, here I am. So,
Yeah, that dynamic happens for everybody though. You always have to
yep,
remember it's like, oh, I've got all these great gigs and I'm making a bunch of money. It's like you always have to have something
yep,
that's
yep,
actually that's preparing you for tomorrow. Even if it's
yep,
just keeping conversations open, even if it's just
yep,
creating a little bit of content and posting on your social feeds a few times a week, or
100%.
being involved in not either your own community or somebody else's community. Because if you don't, it dries up. And it's so funny, like so many people have come to me like with like, oh, need help, or if do you know got any referrals or whatever. It's like, dude, I didn't hear from you, and you didn't talk to me for a year.
Mm,
It hit me up for a referral. Like, that's stupid. There's no way I'm
yeah,
giving
yeah,
you
yeah.
referrals. Whereas like it's the people who never even ask me for referrals, but just, hey, once a month, like I have a 5-minute chat with them in
Mm,
Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp. Those are the people who are like living in my head rent free. And like when some shit comes in my
interesting.
desk, like, hey, I need this. Can you do it, John? I'm like, no, it's not my gig, or I'm too busy. Those
Yep.
people get it without even having to ask for it.
Yeah, because they're there. They actually care. Well, and I think there's a level of they give a shit
They give a shit,
instead of
but
yeah,
functionally,
yeah,
they got the space in my head. They got the mental
yeah,
real estate.
yeah, 100%.
Whereas the
Huh.
person who just shows up right at the moment they need something is buggered. Like they are
Yep.
buggered.
Yeah.
It's too
Yeah, and
late.
there's no trust there. I mean, it's like, oh, you again.
We've all got those people in our lives that the
Uh-huh.
minute you see their notification, like, ah, shit, what's it this time? And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and there's so little self-awareness of people that they are that person in other people's lives. It's crazy. Like, I don't want to be that person. I want to be that person. I don't want to be the person either who like gives somebody 5 minutes of buttering them up before I ask for what I want. Typically, when I reach out to somebody with an ask, I actually ask the ask first. So I make it completely clear that I'm hitting you up to ask for something. But
Here to just yeah, yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
No,
I'm
that's
not going
cool.
to try and shoot the breeze and segue into a pitch. I'm messaging you to ask for something, but I also want to make sure that I've actually maintained some level of relationship with that person, that it's cool to make the ask, and there'll be
Yeah.
no ill feeling as a result.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, that's cool. Hmm.
It's cooking here, man. Where is it like in Canada?
It's I'd say it's like, let's see. It's 12 degrees.
Oh, okay. So it really is
It's yeah,
Canada.
12 degrees Celsius. Yeah, it's getting cold. 12, 14 degrees. When we first came back last year, like at 12, 14 degrees, I'd be freezing. It was our first time coming back from the tropics in like many, many moons, it felt like, and it like whoo, just shivering. Like even right now, I'm wearing a sweater, whereas like your average Canadian still wearing shorts and a t-shirt. It's a nice, beautiful summer day.
Are you down in
Um,
Mexico for the long haul now? Do you think you'll ever come back up north?
so uh this trip was for us to explore Canada and see how we liked it. Like we did
Mm-hmm.
quite a bit of yeah, just like checking out communities. We drove all around like the outskirts of Calgary. We drove to the mountains. We drove back and went to all these small little towns and like just to see, do we like the city life? Do we like the country life? Like what do we actually enjoy? We're not sure. Honestly, we came to the conclusion of we're actually not sure. We don't have any definitive answer just yet. I think we're going to do for sure, another year in Mexico, and then from there we'll see. Huh. There's aspects of Mexico I love. There's aspects of Mexico I don't like. There's aspects of Canada I love. There's aspects of Canada I don't like. Um, so yeah, it's something. It's to be honest, it's a big man. I think we've been to like 25 different countries across our journey. We still don't really know where is home. And I'm sure you can relate.
Yeah,
Um,
traveling a lot cures you of this idea that there's some, land of milk and honey just over the rainbow. Like there is absolutely not. Everywhere has problems, different problems, but problems.
thing that I'm thinking more and more about just as I get a little older, I'm like, where am I planting my roots? A lot of a lot of hubs are quite transient. Like I'll get close to someone for a little while, might be 6 months, might be a year, and then they're off to their next country. Or
Mm-hmm.
they might come around every 2 to 3 months for a quick visit, but then in that short period of time, they're cramming everything that they can, all their visits into a quick visit, and then they're off. So as much and as cool as that is that we've been doing like pros and cons, it's like I really do like how I get to meet international people when I'm in a nomadic hub. Like I have friends from all over America, Canada, fuck, you name it. But then there's also this level of like these communities, even in rural Alberta, it's like these people aren't going anywhere. Like these people have built their entire existence here. Like they
Mm-hmm.
have a family farm and they've been here for 150 years. And it's like, and they're deeply connected. They know everybody. They know everyone around them. And it's like, and they know, so and so's daughter's first name. Like it sounds crazy, but like being abroad, I've came to realize that like my future, I think, I don't want to say satisfaction, but it will come down to my network of the people I'm connected with. And
Mm-hmm.
sure, I can connect with people online, and like I've stayed in touch with you over the years. It's sometimes we come and go, we keep in touch, but we really like conversation don't have a depth with each other. We can
Mm-hmm.
still talk about deep things, but like I don't really know your partner. You don't really know my
Yes,
partner. So it's
it's a
like
very different thing.
I'm starting to really realize that like something that I think my soul's vying for a lot, that like I planted roots in Mexico. I have handfuls of really close, good friends. Even a lot of them too, though, are like, I think I plan to stay here. It's like it's a good for now, not necessarily a good forever. And then it's like, wait, like where am I investing my relationships offline? Like who am I actually talking to? Who am I connecting with? Like, man, the amount of millionaires that we met in rural Alberta offline run day-to-day businesses. They aren't involved in marketing. I'm like, huh, interesting. Like it's like, whoa, you're not like posting on Facebook. You're
You
not
don't
on
know who Alex
Twitter. Like,
Hormozy is,
yeah,
yet you're
yeah,
still rich.
exactly. Yeah, and you're loaded, and you got all sorts of toys, and you got all sorts of tractors and crazy things, and they work pipeline. They do different contracting companies, and it's like, huh, that. So I think that's really interesting. Like being abroad, I hang out with lots of marketers and coaches. And like, a lot of people say your network is your net worth, and that's fine. But when you're hanging out with a lot of agencies and coaches and consultants, they're not sending you random clients unless you're very niche specific. Like you have to be like, I work with like, medical facilities doing this or whatever. If you're that niche specific, they might know someone, then throw them your way. But as a general marketer and consultant, it's like I find that all I get from a lot of my network is just good relationship. Like I get good close connections and people that like I can get to know, and we can share problems and different things. We can mastermind. But when I went to Winnipeg, like I went to some of these tech events, and I'm the only marketer in the room. I was like, holy crap!
It's a
Like
good place to
I'm
be.
literally, yeah, it's like I'm literally the only person that knows anything about marketing in this room. Like there might be one other agency, and I was like, huh, that's fascinating. So yeah, those are some of my uh, points that I'm weighing on like where do I move? Where do I live? Um, yeah, it's a big part of my current existence is figuring that out. But also not putting too much pressure on myself either, because it's like I just don't know, and I don't know if I'll fully know. I think at some point I'm just gonna have to make a choice. Like this is where I'm planting my flag. So
It becomes more acute when you have kids. I mean, I was 13
mm,
years away from Ireland
yep,
and didn't really intend to come back. But then my kids got to school age. I was like, okay, where
yep,
do I want them educated? Well, I want them to have a little bit of their culture here. We came
yep,
back, and that was 5 years ago now. Are we going to
yep,
be here forever, ever? Don't know. But as it stands, I don't see myself um like disconnecting for that long ever again, because
yep,
I'm not living in the place I grew up. I'm living in a different part of Ireland. But
yep,
the people here, like the culture, as much as like this stuff that drives me crazy, it makes
yep,
sense to me. It's
yeah,
and like
yep,
when you go away for a long time and you come back, when you leave when you're young, you're frustrated.
yep,
When you
yep.
come back after a long time away, you got some fresh eyes for the stuff that is actually really good that you never noticed
Stuff that
before
really
because you thought it
matters.
was
Yep,
normal.
yep. Man, the nature in Canada.
Nature, yeah.
I'd traveled to 25 countries thinking I'd find better nature.
No.
Like very, very slim. Like there's some places in Indonesia where it looks amazing. You can't go in it. Be like spiders and like snakes and like scary things in the jungle that like they're gonna eat you alive. And
Yeah.
it's like, wait, like the most dangerous thing we have in the forest here is bears and cougars. But even then, they don't really want much to do with you. As long as you're not messing with them, they're not messing with you. Like even the other day, we're driving down the road and we just see like four bears just across the road. We're like, wow, that's amazing. Like I just you don't, yeah, like we're up in the where was it? Hot Spring, and there's like goats running down the side of the road, like mountain goats, and it's like what
Mhm.
the shit? Like I've never seen this abroad, and it's like now I'm back in Canada, and there's actually, yeah, the nature is unbelievable. So I think that's like, yeah, that was a big misconception that I've realized, and like people even waving at you in back roads, like you're driving down the back roads, and they're like, hey, it's like,
That's
oh hey,
Ireland as
what's
well.
up?
It's like insanely
Yeah,
friendly. Like people don't
yeah,
want you to engage them in a really long conversation, but almost everyone you walk past says hi or gives you a nod or says good morning or says lovely day or something like that, and just acknowledges you as a human being and you acknowledge them as a human being, and life is better for us.
man, I spent a day on a farm. I wanted just a different perspective. I helped a friend do a bunch of combining and just like help them move and do a convoy of combines. Like, what a unique experience. And it's like, I will never experience this in Mexico. Like, we're cutting wheat, we're cutting thousands and thousands of acres of wheat. And like, we're unloading on the go and like hauling headers with giant trucks and like, literally six combines driving down the highway. Like we have a flag car up front driving up, getting people to pull over, and like what a unique, interesting experience that like even growing up, I was like, this is just whatever. It's it helped a little bit on the farm as a kid, but like as I'm getting older, I was like, man, this is cool. Like this is a serious operation. Like to have six combines running and like two tandems and like a super B to unload everything. It's like this is a big operation to even gas those things up in itself, man. Like that's a feat. Like that's a huge investment.
Yeah, you can definitely get very blinkered working online, but thinking about like what a business is and what a big business is,
Yeah,
or and it's like, no, people are doing all kinds of crazy shit that are not looking at their
yeah,
computers all day long.
yeah, 100%. There's many days where I'm sure you do too. I reminisce about construction. I'm like, even though it was painful,
Yeah.
there is pieces of it that I'm like, you know what? Pretty easy to clean up with now what I know. What I know. I seen you talking to an HVAC guy about this actually in detail in the conversation, but it's like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, that was cool. Cool thread, by the way. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Very unique perspective that like not a lot of people have. Like, there's this side of like internet marketing that everyone's like acquire a business and like run an offline business, but then there's also the other side of like I'm following some dude right now that acquired a bunch of furniture stores and he's going totally bankrupt. And he's like,
The
this is
people
the
the people saying acquire an offline business are not going to run those offline businesses. They're just selling
yeah
you on the
yeah
opportunity.
yeah
Like
100%.
it took me a long time to realize this is
Mm,
like the level of, it's not quite fraudulent, but the level of disingenuousness online is pretty extreme. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's like I went back and read this book. It's Dan Kennedy. It's one of his like PDF ebooks from a seminar from years ago. It's called Opportunity Concepts. And if you read that book, it's about the nature of like BizOp and business opportunity selling, and like the history of it back to the old like kind of carnies and traveling salesmen and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When you read through it, and like you see like, okay, it's the same old patterns being run again and again and again. And it's like there's certain people, I don't like to point out people by name because it is what it is.
No, I get it.
There's no benefit to it. But there's certain people who are running these kinds of buying offline, or like take your internet cash and buy an offline business, and you buy 50 car washes and you'll save $10 billion on your taxes, and you'll have all these car washes and you'll have so much cash flow. It's like bullshit. Like there's a huge amount of friction and operational drag in anything you do in the real world. It does not exist in the same way online.
Yep, 100%. Absolutely. No, it's and I think that's, to add to that, that's I think one thing I'm missing from the online world is depth of connection. Like real deep friendships of people that like I'm basically, the majority of my online friends are just people from the marketing space. We know each other pretty well, but there's this lack of like, how do I say this? Like even a friend I was hanging out with on the combine the other day, he's like, man, I've never actually got to know your full story. And it's kind of, as I was reflecting, I was like, it's kind of cool that we don't really know each other's full story. Like we actually have a chance to get to know each other in full detail, like, and actually really hang out as friends instead of just like, I don't know. It's fascinating. It's there's definitely a lack of depth that I buy for after working online. It's still like I still know a lot of cool people and many cool places, but also I think there's an upside and downside to that too.
It's a different thing. I regularly say like that knowing people online is basically just having another voice in your head. You never actually, when you meet people in person, it's a very different thing. And you cannot
so much,
you cannot go long term without that in your life. And it's too easy to spend a lot of time of your one life that you get just looking at a screen. And people can wake up one day and be like, shit, where did those years go?
Where did they go? I mean, we've been traveling for almost 7-8 years now, and it's like, oh, everything's different. Everything has changed a lot, like post-pandemic, pre-pandemic. Crazy.
Hey, I'm going to take this as an opportunity to say thank you and wrap up this call.
Absolutely. Dude,
if people want to find you, Troy, where can they find you?
Oh gosh, you could find me on Twitter. You could find me on Facebook, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Troy Assoignon, TroyAssoignon.
Okay, I'm going to stick it in the description, the link of the video.
Awesome, sweet man, appreciate you.
Cheers, Troy. I'm going to stop the recording.